Hi guys, welcome back to Beyond the Monsters. Today I have Nathan Wray here. Wait, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Wray. We were just talking about this.
We just talked about it.
Yeah, I never remember names.
You nailed it.
Or pronunciations. I'm like, oh, in my mind it was already going, do I know it? Do I know it? Well, Nathan is going to tell us his story today. So
yeah,
let's dive into it.
Yeah. So I grew up as an Air Force brat. My dad, when he started his career in the late 70s, he was the crew chief of Air Force One. And that was a really prominent position. But I was just I was a baby, so I didn't know anything. But as I got older, it was, you really have to, you represent this family, but you also represent this position.
Right.
And so I really just wanted to do my own thing. I didn't want to fall under that umbrella of, I have to be representative of this family. I have to be Bill Ray's son,
Right.
I wanted everything but that.
You're like, I want to be Nathan.
Yes, I wanted to be me. And Dad really, he really did support that. When I was 10, 11 years old, I would get in trouble for watching A&E an evening at the Improv or Def Comedy Jam, because I shouldn't have been watching those shows.
Right.
I'm sure there was a kid comedy show somewhere, but I wanted to be a comedian. I wanted to make people laugh, and I felt like that was really my ultimate coping skill as a kid was, if I could make somebody laugh, then I could feel better about myself. And if there was a situation where I felt sad or mad or angry, if I made somebody laugh, it made me feel better instantly. Traveling around, moving from Air Force Base to Air Force Base is very, very different to each one that you go to. You're either accepted very quickly or you're bullied very quickly.
Yeah.
So at 12, we moved to a new Air Force Base, and the bullying seemed to kind of start very, very quickly.
Okay.
So we moved 7 days later, we're there for like 7 days. After my first week of school, on that Friday, I get invited to a birthday party, and I'm thinking, okay, things are changing, right? This is going to be great. So I go to the birthday party, I tell Mom and Dad, I'm like, I got invited to a birthday party, and they're excited, I'm excited. I go to the birthday party, and it has everything that you would expect at a birthday party, right? Like the piñata, it has the cookout, the presents, the cake, and all that. So we do the piñata, we do the cookout, and then everybody goes inside for the cake and the presents. While we're inside, there's a girl inside that says to me, hey, if you go outside and smoke a cigarette with me, I will be your girlfriend. And I was thinking, I'm about to become a 12-year-old legend. This is it. Like, everyone will respect me now,
Right.
And so I was like, of course I will go outside and smoke a cigarette with you. So we went outside and we smoked a cigarette. She put the cigarette out.
First time?
First time.
Smoked, okay.
First time. And I had that immediate rush of dopamine, not that real dopamine, but that nicotine induced dopamine.
Right.
And I instantly just, whatever was going on in my life, it went away, and I thought, this is great. I like this. And so we smoked the cigarette, she put it out, and then she told me, I was just joking with you. And when she did that, I heard everybody at the party laughing, right? So this was planned. This was a thing that was to make me feel bad about myself. And so I immediately left, right? So I leave, I walk home, I get to the house, and my mom and dad can smell the cigarette smoke on me. And then my dad, smells my breath, and he's like, you've been smoking, and they could have said so many different things to me, my dad's mom had passed away from lung cancer from smoking. They could have said that, they could have done something to prevent it from happening again, but they just didn't know how to have that conversation.
Yeah, right.
And my kids are sick of this conversation,
Right.
And most of them are adults. My youngest is 16, and we still have this conversation and she's like, I get it. But my parents didn't know.
Right.
And so they just said, you're grounded for 2 weeks. And that was it. Well, at the end of 2 weeks, I was like, how can I get another cigarette?
Right.
You know? And so I went up to the store that was on the Air Force Base. They call it the BX or the Shopette. And they have those little ashtrays out, you know, and so I would just wait for people that were, you know, smoking a cigarette. They'd maybe have a full cigarette and they'd put it out. And I'd go run and grab one. And then eventually I figured out like who smoked at school and who else was stealing cigarettes at school. And then those became my friends. And so that habit of smoking just became more and more and more. And
right.
my parents just, I mean, they tried, but they did not know what to do. It's almost like they were just like, I mean.
And communication was so different with your parents when we were younger, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is 1989, I think, you know? And so communication back then was just like, just don't do it.
Right.
You know? It was the big, just say no.
Right. Yep.
Right. And I mean, it was still happening. I mean, Reagan wasn't president anymore, but it was still going on.
Right.
The just say no thing, but it didn't work. Right. Like we have to do way more than just say no.
Right.
Why do you say no? You know, what's your reason behind saying no?
Even like being grounded. Well, you're grounded 2 weeks for smoking the cigarette, but no explanation, no.
Right.
Like maybe if they would have scared the shit out of you a little bit, you know, and said like about your grandma and things like that, who knows what direction it would have went, you know?
I don't know, you know, and I think about like, I needed the discipline, but I also needed them to explain why I was receiving the discipline, like, so that I could understand, okay, so nicotine-induced changes to the teenage brain can be permanent, right? Like,
right.
But they didn't know that either, you know, and I don't know that many people knew that.
Yeah,
back
I was thinking
then.
that back then they probably didn't even put it out there like that at that point.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, at 14, I could send camel bucks in, you know, and
Right.
and get the camel shirt or
Right.
the backpack or whatever,
Yeah, that's
you know.
so true.
So I mean, I'm sure like that kind of thing just wasn't there, but any type of communication, you know, hey, we expect more of you, you know, or even, you know, something like, I don't know, it's just our family has never smoked. We don't have smokers in our house. And because, you know, your grandmother passed away, we don't do that. Something that
Right.
we're going to stay away from. And, you know, we want you to stay away because we want the best health for you. And like that would have worked, you know, but it just wasn't, you know, it wasn't there. So, so as, you know, as time went on, I kept smoking. And at 13, I met a friend at football practice and he offered to take me home one day after practice. He was 16, I was 13. And he said, hey, if I give you a ride home, you know, do you want to smoke? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like I smoke all the time.
Yeah.
So I got in his car, you know, I start to pull my cigarettes out and he's like, no, like smoke.
Oh, like smoke.
Yeah. Right? Like it's 4:20 after class,
Right.
you know, or after school. So, so I didn't want to be like, oh, I've never done that before because I just wanted to be desperately accepted.
Yeah.
You know,
that wouldn't have been cool.
Right.
Right.
And so I was like, oh yeah, I smoke, you know? And so that was the first time I ever smoked marijuana.
Okay.
And that kind of became my coping skill. And I realized now as an adult that coping skill that I had as a kid of laughter, it just went away. You know, over time, I was using cigarettes and then marijuana, and that laughter, that desire to make people laugh, that desire for comedy, it just left.
Because you were kind of numbing it, you know, and wow.
Yeah. So like it was gone. And
Did you notice that at the time, or was it like when you look back, you know?
when I look back, because I thought I was still being funny, but I was being rude and disrespectful.
Okay.
And I didn't realize it, you know, and I would make jokes in school and I would make jokes at home, but they weren't jokes. They were really more like attacks on people.
Right.
And you know, it was just full of disrespect. But
Right.
I thought I was being funny. And if my friends would laugh, I thought, hey, I still got it.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm the cool guy.
I'm the funny guy.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But I really wasn't, you know,
Yeah.
but I didn't know it then. So,
Sure.
so I'm struggling in school, and at 13, I'm moving into my freshman year. So I go into my freshman year, and immediately I'm failing all of my classes. Immediately. And
Still smoking.
Still smoking.
Okay.
Still smoking marijuana. And so before report cards come out, I decided that I was going to make fake report cards for myself, for my friends, and then for anybody else that would want one. But I was going to charge people. And so I did that. I was making fake report cards. And I got away with it for a little while till the next semester. And progress reports came out the next semester, and my mom got a phone call from the counselor. And she said, we need to talk about Nathan's grades. And my mom went, I know, they're great, aren't they? And the counselor was like, Nathan Wray? And she was like, yeah, I've got his report card right here. They've been wonderful, you know? And she's like, I think you better come into the office.
Oh boy.
And then the whole thing, you know, fell apart. And again, there wasn't that conversation of, hey, this is why you're in trouble. This is why this is wrong. This is why, you know, you might need a little bit of attention. Or maybe somebody, instead of asking me like, what's wrong with you, Nathan? Because that was the question everybody asked me all the time. Nathan, you don't turn in your assignments. What's wrong with you? I'd go to football practice and the coach would be like, we've ran this play 1,000 times. What's wrong with you? You know, and that just started to become something that I believed, like
something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like this broken thing, you know?
Right.
And so I remember on the ride home from that day, like, why would you do this? What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
You know? And so, again, though, you're grounded 2 weeks, you've been suspended from school. Thankfully you weren't expelled, because this really could have been this was a crime, right? Like they could have prosecuted me for this. But they didn't. They gave me a chance. And so after that 2 weeks, I come back to school, and I get invited to a party. And so I don't tell my parents I'm going to go to a party. I tell them I'm going to a friend's house.
Were you kind of nervous based on the trauma from, or you're just way past that now?
No, I at that point, like, I want to be in trouble. Like, I feel like that's the only way I'm getting attention. That's the only way I'm getting any type of feedback from anybody is when I'm in trouble. When I'm doing good, no one's saying anything to me.
Right.
And
so the negative attention is better than no attention.
It's better than no attention.
Which I don't think a lot of people recognize that even today when kids are acting out. Usually 90% of the time, there's an issue, whether it's at home or with other kids or whatever. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
And I'll dive into that in a minute.
Okay.
On what I think is going on or what I believe is going on. But for me, I wasn't scared. I felt like I could just like run the world and I would be perfectly okay. So I went to the party and I got drunk, and my friends took me home and they dropped me off, and you know, I walked through the front door, and of course it was, what's wrong with you, Nathan? Why do you act like this? Why do you make these decisions? You know, why are you messing up your life? And they were right. I mean, they weren't wrong, you know, but as a dad, I think like there's a whole different way you could have approached this conversation. You
like,
know?
How can we help you? Tell us some of the things that are bothering you. Something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So what I didn't realize is, you know, nothing was wrong with me. I didn't learn this until I was an adult. I had adverse childhood experiences. I was abused very early in life by a relative.
Okay.
And I didn't know how to process any of that, by a very close relative.
Were your parents aware of it?
No, matter of
Okay.
fact, my mom had asked me one time if there was anything going on, and I told her. I said, yes, this is what's going on, and she said, no, but for real, and because she couldn't believe it, and I don't
sure.
fault her for that. She loves me, and I have no doubts about
Right.
that, so, and she really did the best to protect, me, but it's just, it would be hard to believe, and so
The best she knew how, I guess.
right.
Easy
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, at that time.
Yeah. And so, I didn't know how to cope with any of that. And so what I realized is that at the beginning, comedy was that coping skill. And then once I hit the cigarettes and then the marijuana and then the alcohol, and all of a sudden I didn't have to feel feelings anymore. I didn't want to feel feelings anymore. I didn't want to, have emotions, and all of those things blocked that. And so I just kept using those things, over and over and over again. When I was 15, I had a really good friend in high school, and he didn't really want to do drugs or use alcohol. He really wanted to focus on basketball and just, in the sense of things, just be a good kid.
Right.
And I just kept on with the peer pressure. Come on, just don't make me smoke alone. Don't make me, get high alone. Don't make me drink alone.
Right.
And eventually he caved. He caved to the peer pressure. We both quit sports. We both quit playing sports after our freshman year.
Wow, and he was pretty dedicated to that in the beginning.
Yeah, he was really dedicated to it. And so, we were best friends. We did everything together. We went everywhere together. We hung out all the time. And we got in trouble together,
Right.
and we caused trouble together, so, our parents knew each other, and now looking back on it, I think like they could have come together and like brought us like intervention style,
Right.
like we're going to write this letter to you both. But they didn't, they just didn't know what to do,
Yeah.
And so we just kept going on with our lives through high school, and we get to our senior year, and we're both struggling with school. I am failing. I have one class that I have to pass to graduate. And I get pulled down to the counselor's office 3 months before graduation. And they tell me, hey, you have to get this grade up or you're not going to graduate. And I was just like, that's fine. No problem. And just thinking like, I can do this without putting in any effort. I can do this without putting in any dedication.
Right.
Heck, I can do this without even turning in an assignment. I'll just magically pass somehow.
Because I'm Nathan.
Because I'm Nathan. I mean, a girl wanted to date me at 12. Like I had magically made that story to where it benefited me, right? Like,
you, right?
Yeah. Even though that wasn't the case,
right?
I made it the case, So,
sure.
So I was just like, yeah, it's fine. Everything's gonna be okay. So 3 weeks before my graduation, our high school principal comes down to that math class, Mr. Miller's math class, and says, Mr. Miller, I need to see Nathan out in the hallway. Nathan, grab your stuff.
Oh.
Meet me in the hallway. And
He came down and called you right out of class. Oof.
I'm thinking in my delusional mind, he's going to tell me in the hallway that I passed and congratulate me.
Right.
Right? Shake my hand. You did it.
Right.
3 weeks, you're going to get the cap. You're going to get the gown. It's all going to be okay. So I go out in the hallway, and he's like, let's go to your locker. And in my delusional mind, I think, I know what's happening here. My mom and dad are at the locker. Like, it's all going to be this congratulations.
Right.
Everything is going to be great. But as I'm walking to my locker, like I walk past my biology class, and I don't know why, but I look into my biology class, And my biology teacher is like teaching, but he looks out at me, he sees me passing. And I don't know if you've ever seen someone like look at you and they know something's wrong, but I caught that. And I was like, oh no, this is bad.
Oh.
And everything changed for me. Like I just shifted my mood, you know.
Heart drops to your stomach, all the things, butterflies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sweating, shaking, heart beating, all of that. And so I get to my locker and the principal said, Nathan, whatever belongs to the school, take it out of your bag and put it in the locker. Whatever belongs to you, take it out of your locker and put it in your bag. You're done here.
Wow.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So what do you mean by that? Like for the day? No, your career here, your school career here is over. You're not graduating.
Wow.
Crap. So he walked me to the front of the school and held the door open for me and said, good luck, you know? And for years, I didn't go back. For years, I avoided even being near that school.
Thought, yeah.
But I went home and walked through the front door. What's wrong with you, Nathan? School called. Why are you messing up your life? You need a high school diploma.
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Why are you broken? You know?
Yeah.
And I held on to that for so long.
Sure. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That's all you knew. That's all you heard.
Right. Yeah. And that's like, I would encourage people, if you're asking someone that question, stop it.
Right. Or at least ask a few more questions before that. Like, at least, what is wrong? Tell us what's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. Is there something going on that we need to talk about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish somebody would have asked me, like, you know, and my mom did, but she didn't believe it, you know, but my teachers could have asked, you know, hey, what's going on here, man? Like, this isn't typical behavior.
Right.
You know, and so I went home. They were upset, and I really didn't know what I was going to do.
It's kind of concerning, too, that they didn't, I mean, even back when we were grade school, I think you're probably close to my age, I'm 48. The teachers would, if kids were having issues, from what I remember, they would send, because I got sent a lot to the guidance counselors. Now, mind you, I didn't talk about my shit, you know, to them. Yeah. But the teacher would recognize there's an issue. You need to go see your guidance counselor.
Yep.
And it's too bad that no one did that for you.
I had one teacher, Miss Sensabaugh, and I had her my sophomore year of high school. And when she got my records, when she was looking at my records, there was a couple of teachers who had wrote in my records should probably just drop out.
Oh.
And she called my mom and dad and she said, can you tell me what Nathan loves? What does he love to do? What is his favorite thing, or what did he love to do? And my mom and dad told her, like, he loves the Cubs and he loves the Chicago Bulls, and he's all about that stuff. And so she was English literature class. And so on the very first day of English literature class, she was like, all right, we're going to read about the Chicago Cubs. And like, she knew that would get me, right? She knew that would be the thing that would connect with me. And it did. Like,
yeah, were you like, whoa?
Yes. I was like, oh, heck yeah, she's a Cubs fan. Like,
right.
And I thought, like, what I was thinking was, I can easily like guide her into an A because I'm a Cubs fan. She's a Cubs fan,
right.
You know, so we can like, she'll just give me an A, but she made me work for it, but I wanted to work for it because I enjoyed it. And as time would go on, like I would walk into the room and there would be like a Ryan Sandberg poster or a Mark Grace poster and Cubs things and Chicago Bulls stuff on her desk. And so she was doing these things to keep my attention and to
Right.
keep the conversation going with me.
Did you start to think to yourself like, oh, maybe she cares about me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I knew that she was the one teacher that absolutely cared. I knew it because she invested in me. You know?
Well, look at the difference it made,
Yeah.
even with you wanting to go to class and paying attention and
Yeah.
noticing all that different stuff. Gosh,
Yeah.
it's
So
the little things.
it's the little
you know?
things. That's it. It's just the little things, and it's just connecting with students. That's all that it is.
Right.
If you can connect with your students, you've gone above and beyond what they ever imagined that you would do. I got a B in her class that year, and
And that was probably a big deal for you, right? Because you were failing all the time.
it was a big deal for me. But I was accused of cheating.
Oh,
Because all my other grades, I'd been nothing but a bad student. And I get it. You know, I understand. But when they brought me in, I said, listen, you know, she connected with me. And I'm interested in her class because she makes it interesting. Everybody else is boring. And I'm
Right.
sorry to tell you, but their classes suck. And that's how I felt, you know? And she was always my favorite teacher, and I had her again my senior year, and you know, did really well in her class again. But
love that.
but yeah, she was my favorite teacher. But I ended up not graduating. I didn't get the cap and gown. I didn't get to walk across the stage. Nobody handed me a diploma.
Right.
I had a friend come over after school that day that I got kicked out. His name was Eric. And Eric said, hey man, like, what are you going to do? And I go, I don't know. I guess I'm just going to get a job. And he said, no, like, you need a high school diploma. And I go, no, like, I'm good. I'm just going to get a job. And he goes, no, like, seriously, you need a high school diploma. And I said, well, I'm not getting one. And he said, well, do me a favor. He said, why don't you go to Kokomo High School and sign up for summer school and get your high school diploma, like finish your math class and get your high school
That's all you
diploma
needed,
there.
right?
That's all that I needed was like half a credit.
Okay.
That was it. And I could graduate. And I was like, no, man, I don't know. I'm not going to do it. And so he goes, what if I drove you every single day and then picked you up and drove you home every single day? Would you do it? And I went, yeah, but you're not going to do that. And he said, yeah, I will. And he did. He did it every single day.
That's pretty amazing for that age, for someone to be that caring.
Eric was
Wow.
a great guy, a really great guy. So he did that every single day. I got my high school diploma in the summer of 1996, but I didn't get I'm officially the class of 1997 because
Okay.
because summer school precedes
Right.
the next school year.
Right.
So I got my diploma in 1997. Immediately after that, my dad took a job with Southwest Airlines. He retired from the Air Force, took a job with Southwest, and we moved to Phoenix, Arizona. We got to Phoenix, Arizona, and I just spiraled out of control. Like immediately, I found who was smoking weed, and then I wanted to be a big baller, right?
Right.
And so as I partied with people, you know, I saw quite a lot of marijuana moving around, and I thought, I can drive some marijuana around. Like, I can do that.
Oh.
And so I started doing it. And I would load up the trunk of my Toyota Tercel, my 1996 Toyota Tercel.
I know the car.
and I would drive it from like South Phoenix over to Mesa, Arizona, and I'd back into a garage, and they would unload it, and they would hand me money, and then I would drive back to South Phoenix and give the money back.
And during this time, you could have gotten in deep shit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's not like today.
Not like today.
Yeah.
No. And still, you probably would still get in trouble
Distributing
for the amounts that I had. And
Right.
there was one time where I was driving to Mesa, and I was getting off on the exit that went to Mesa, and there was a police car that had turned his lights on, and I thought he was pulling me over. And so I was going really, really slow, and I was trying to get to the stoplight so I could turn and go into the gas station to pull over. And so I'm going really, really slow. And finally, like, he kind of zips around me and he goes in the car in front of me and he stops, and the car in front of me stops, and he gets out and he comes back to my car and he bangs on the window, and I roll the window down, and I'm shaking. Like, I'm like,
Sure.
oh God, I'm going to go to jail.
Right.
And he goes, when a officer has his lights on, you get out of the effing way. And I was like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And he's like, have a great day. And I was like, you too, sir. And I just rolled up the window and I was like, oh God. And I drove to Mesa and I was like, what's the speed limit? Like,
Right.
I'm going 5 under,
Yes. Yes.
So while I was doing that, like, I decided, no one's going to know if I just pinch a little off the top before I get to Mesa. And so I started to do that. And I just started to pinch a little bit off the top. Not much, and maybe enough for a joint, and then it became more than a joint. And then it became...
Were the guys that you were delivering for, were they like hardcore, like,
Yeah.
don't F with us kind of people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, South Phoenix is like, it's not a great place to be. And I wouldn't suggest anybody, I don't know what it's like now.
Right.
But back then I wouldn't suggest anybody, hang out in that area.
Right.
So
you're still taking a little bit, knowing could have some serious consequences.
Could have some very serious consequences. So I kept doing it. And when I left Mesa, delivered everything, got the money, went back to South Phoenix. And when I got back to South Phoenix, like, there were a bunch of guys just sitting on the porch waiting for me. And I thought, oh, they just want the money, they're just waiting for the money. And so I got out of the car and I started to walk up to the porch, and they started to walk towards me. And I thought, okay, I have to make a decision. Do I run? Do I just hand over the money? Do I drop the money and run? Like, what do I,
Right.
what do I do
Right.
here? Do I go back to the car? Can I get in the car fast enough? Like, I'm trying to process all of this.
There's multiple guys walking towards you?
Multiple. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they don't look happy,
Right.
They're angry. And I know why. I'm not stupid.
Right.
I know why.
Right.
And so I just dropped what I had and I ran. And I'm running through South Phoenix. I don't really know the neighborhood. But I'm running and they're running after me. And so at this point, like, I know, okay, like, this is legit. They will probably kill me if they catch me.
Right.
And so I'm like running through yards and running around the corners of streets and running through cars and just trying to get away as fast as I possibly can. And I come around the corner of the street and there's like this driveway with a car. And so I just like slid underneath the car to where, like, they couldn't see where I was at. I just slid
Right.
underneath the car, and it's probably like 1 a.m. in the morning, right? So I slide under the car and I put my arms like this, and I'm trying not to breathe. I'm just like,
Right.
because I smoke weed. My lungs are not good.
Right.
I want to be like,
You're totally out of breath. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
but
Right.
I'm doing my best to just,
Yeah.
and I can hear them, I can hear them walking around. I can hear them, looking, and they eventually, leave. They go. And so I'm sitting there thinking, what if they didn't go? What if they know that I'm
Waiting.
down here
Yeah.
waiting for me? So I stayed there. I laid under that car until like 3:30 in the morning. And then I started to think, like, gosh, what if this homeowner like works at 4 a.m., and
Come out and start the car.
and I'm just like, hey, have a great day at work,
Right.
So I finally, like, I crawl out from underneath the car. I go to a gas station and I call my dad.
Yeah, because your car's still in that driveway.
Yeah. I call my dad at 3 in the morning. I go, hey, Dad, I'm in trouble and I need you to come pick me up. This is where I'm at. Nathan, what is wrong with you? Why can't you get it together? Dad, I don't know, but I'm scared and I don't know what to do. Can you come pick me up? I'll be there in 30 minutes. And he just hung up. Didn't say bye, like, no, I love you, like nothing. Just, I'll be there in 30 minutes. And I understand. Like, I understand,
Right.
you know. So he came and picked me up, asked me where the car was, and I explained everything. You know, this is what I've been doing. And he listened, and we got back to the house, and I went straight to my bedroom, and I just shut the door. And as soon as I shut the door, he knocked on my door. And I opened it with this ungrateful attitude. Mm-hmm. What? Do you want a way out of this? I don't know. I'll think about it. Well, if you do, me and your mom are going to transfer to Nashville, Tennessee. You can come with us if you want, but if you don't come with us, this is it. We're done with you. We don't want anything else to do with you. You've caused us too many problems. You make too many bad decisions. We've given you so much, and we've asked for so little. So you can go with us, but again, if you don't, you won't see us again.
Ooh.
I don't know. I'll think about it. And I shut the door. And I shut the door for like 2 minutes. And I was just, I was thinking about everything that had gone on that night, you know?
Right.
And so I went over and knocked on their bedroom door, and I said, "Hey, Dad," and he was like, "What?" Like what else could he possibly want? And I said, I'll go with you. And he said, "Okay, the moving truck will be here in 90 days. Get your stuff ready and be ready, and we'll go."
You're like, shit, I have to hide for 90 days?
90 days.
From those other people? Oh, God.
And you know what? You're right. I mean, I really didn't have to hide, though, because my mom and dad lived in such a nice neighborhood.
Okay.
And I was pretending to be somebody that I wasn't.
So they would have never even thought.
They would have never even thought
right.
that I lived in this nice neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so for 90 days, that's where I stayed. You know, if I need to go to the store, I went to the store that was close to the house. Mm-hmm. You know, and so we did the 90 days, and we moved to Nashville. And when we got to Nashville, I asked my dad if he would help me get a good job. And he said, "Yeah, I'll help you get a good job, but like you have to be sober. You're gonna have to pass a drug test. You can't just get a good job." Mm-hmm. And so I stayed sober for 30 days, long enough to pass a drug test after I had my interview. And I interviewed with Southwest Airlines, and I became a baggage handler for them. And I'm sure you've flown. You know what a baggage handler? Yeah.
Right.
We lose your bags.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I started to do that, and then of course, it wasn't the 31st day that I was, where's the bar? Where's the drinks?
Right.
Where's the weed? Where's the trouble? Mm-hmm. And so I just started getting back into that. And I met a girl that was a baggage handler as well. And I asked her out, and at first she was like, "No, absolutely not." She's like, "I don't even know you, And I was like, "Well, I'll try again, just see what happens." And,
right.
But I got to know her, I didn't want to just be like, "Hey, I'm going to ask you out 1,000 times," like Steve Urkel and Laura, So I got to know her, she got to know me. And so I eventually asked her out again, and she said yes. And so we started dating, and it was going really well. She just didn't really know that I was smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol in my spare time,
right?
And so we dated, and we eventually got married, and then she found out. After, yeah.
Okay.
We had a son, and when he was 3 months old, I got off work one night. I went to the bar. I got drunk. I went to a friend's house, and I got high. And then I went home. And when I went home, she was sitting on the like front step waiting for me. And I pulled in the driveway, and like it was like being back in that hallway at school again.
Yeah.
Like my heart was beating. I was sweating.
Right.
I was like, I couldn't breathe. And I thought, okay, I'm just making all this up. This is going to be okay. She's just waiting on me. I'm home later than what I said I would be. So she just got worried about me, you know? So I got out of the car, and I walked up to the house, and she said, Nathan, you have to make a decision. You can be a husband and a father, or you can live that life, but you can't do both. And I said, all right, fair enough. And so I walked in the house, and I packed a bag, and I threw it in my car and went to a friend's house and asked if I could live with them. And this is where my life changed, though. This is the turning point, because he let me live with him, but in his garage. I couldn't live in a bedroom. Like, couldn't have a bedroom, and he had an open bedroom.
Okay.
But he made me stay in the garage because I smelled like smoke. I smelled like cigarettes. I smelled like alcohol. And so I stayed in that garage for like 9 months, and
Still partying
by myself, you know, alone.
Right.
And I was miserable. And I woke up one day, and it was like, I don't know, it was like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And I just kind of looked around, you know, in this garage, and I thought, what am I doing? You know, like, I have this wife, and I have a son. My dad doesn't talk to me. My mom don't talk to me. Like, what am I doing?
Oh, they stopped talking to you.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Okay. And so I called my dad, and I didn't think he would answer, but he answered, and I said, I don't know what to do. And I thought he was going to say, like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
You know? And it was the first time that he said, he goes, let's go back. He said, let's go back. He goes, let's go kindergarten. What happened? And I go, I don't know. And he goes, no, like what happened in kindergarten? Anything? Anything happened then? I go, I don't know, Dad. What are you talking about? He goes, just anything that was impactful to your life. Did anything happen then? I go, well, sure. Like, you know, I had friends, and, you know, then we moved, you know, and I had to like lose all my friends. And he was like, okay, all right. Yep, that matters. That matters. What about 3rd grade? You know, what happened? Well, I had that big surgery. Yep, that matters. That matters. 5th grade? Yeah, well, started smoking, you know, like, okay, all right, you know, like, let's keep moving on in this, you know, and we just went down the line. He never asked about, you know, the abuse, because I don't think he knew. I don't think my mom ever mentioned it, because she didn't believe it, you know, but he did what he could. And at the end of that conversation, he said, Nathan, he said, you have 2 options. He said, you can take all of that pain, he said, and you can use it to make excuses for your life. He said, or you can take it and create purpose for your life. What do you want to do? And I said, well, Dad, that's what I'm calling. I said, because I want to create purpose for my life. I want to be a husband and a father, but I don't know what to do.
Like, you need a direction.
Yeah. And he said, have you called your wife? And I went, no. And he goes, well, get off the phone with me and call her. And I was like, I don't want to.
Right,
you know,
right.
Like,
yeah.
Because she's going to be like,
that's too much.
yeah. She's going to be like, don't call me,
right.
You know, call your dad or something. I don't know.
Right.
But we hung up, and I called her, and I didn't think that she would answer, you know, I really didn't. But I called her, and she did answer. And I said, I want to be a husband and a father. And I'm sorry that I made the choices that I made. And, if you're willing, I would like to figure this out. And, you know, we talked for probably a good hour, and she said, okay, you know, we'll figure this out. Why don't you get your stuff, and, you know, why don't you shower and come home, and and then we'll talk some more. And so I was like, oh man, this is it. This is so much better. So I got ready. I drove over there. I walked through the door, and I'm beelining for our bedroom, right? Like, I'm going to go put my stuff away in our bedroom. And she was like, whoop, whoop, time out. She's like, you're going to be in that bedroom for now.
You're going this way.
Because you've got some stuff to prove to me. And
good for her.
Yeah. Like she had boundaries, and she had expectations, and she had rules right at the beginning. And so, like if I went to my mom and dad's house, like I had to call as soon as I got there, because she knew how long it took to get from our house to their house. And so there were times where I walked in, and like my dad would be holding the phone, and he would go, "It's Cara." And I go, "Hey, I'm here." And she'd go, "Okay, all right, call me when you leave." Okay, bye. If I went to the grocery store, like I had the list of what to get, but there was a time limit. Like, you have 30 minutes at the grocery store to get these items. That's all that you get.
Was this just until she felt she could trust you?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that was it. And then when she felt she could trust me, all those things lifted. And that was after about a year of doing it, you know, because I still struggled.
For sure, of course.
And I still wanted to just be like, just one drink,
right.
You know, and it won't hurt nobody. But I knew if I did, that I wouldn't be in that house anymore. And that was everything for me. That's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in that home with her.
And now your son is probably maybe starting to walk, and he's like a year old-ish.
Yeah. You know, and he's walking.
Seen him grow.
He's doing those things that a typical 1-year-old would do, but not everything, which created some concern for us. And so we found out that he had autism.
Okay.
You know, and that was difficult, but so we moved back in together. Like, life is good, but now we have this new diagnosis, and now we have this new challenge, and now we're trying to navigate this, you know, and we have no clue how to do this. And I will tell you that it's at the beginning it was nonverbal. There were behavior issues out the door. And my immediate coping skills were, I need a drink, you know, but again, that's not where I wanted to be. I wanted to be a dad and a husband. Right. And that's where I wanted to be. And so that's what I focused on, was being a dad and a husband. How can I help? What do I need to do? Do I need a better job to get better insurance? You know, and we did those things. And so,
but you probably still, you know, had the craving or wanted to at least numb some of it, because you had your hands full.
I've always wanted to numb pain. I've never wanted to experience it. Right. Because for everyone, pain is uncomfortable. For sure. You know? Yeah. But you can't numb every pain that you have, and pain is good. I mean, pain's a good thing. It tells us something's wrong. Right. You know? Right. Pay attention to this. You know, warning sign. Right. Right. But I still wanted to numb it. And so what I started doing was I didn't realize, but I was eating out of control. And when I got married, I was probably like 190 pounds. And by the time that our son was 5 years old, I think I was 301 pounds. Okay, so you were eating a lot. I was eating a lot. Yeah. And I didn't see it as an addiction. Right. Yeah, I was just hungry. Right. 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 Yeah. I don't know why every time he cries, I get hungry. Every time you're mad at me, I get hungry. Or, you know, but that's what it was to me. And a lot of times we go, I mean, it's just fact. It seems with most of us, you go from one addiction to another. If we're not really treating the root causes of all that. Yeah. Yeah, because I wasn't treating that adverse childhood experience. I wasn't treating any of them. Right. None of them. It was, I'm just going to pretend like everything's okay, you know? Right. And try not to create those for my kids. or guard them from them.
Right.
You know, so we, you know, we had our son. We ended up having another daughter in 2006, 2005. And then we had another daughter in 2006.
Okay.
One right after another.
Wow.
And,
Now your hands are really full.
Our hands are really full, almost tied.
Right.
Our youngest daughter at the time was presenting signs of autism as well, and we knew it. We knew it, and so we started fighting for her. Mm-hmm. And the doctors kept telling us, "No, she makes eye contact. It's fine."
Right.
And every time she cried or we got that no or whatever, I would eat. Just eat. Mm-hmm. That's my coping skill. I'm going to eat. So in 2008, we had summer. And summer comes along, and now our hands are super full. We're just...
So there's four now.
There's four now. Uh-huh. And we'd actually had moved to Casa Grande, Arizona, before Summer was born. I had taken a job out there outside of Phoenix so nobody would see me.
Yeah, you didn't want that coming back.
Right. So she was born in Casa Grande, and we eventually moved back to Bell Buckle, Tennessee. We got to Bell Buckle, Tennessee. We were broke. We were just completely broke. It was, end of 2007, the market had crashed. Mm-hmm. Whatever could go wrong could go wrong.
Right.
I took a little job and wasn't making very much money, but we were broke. Eventually I got a promotion. We moved to Knoxville, and then the company that I was working for went out of business.
Okay.
And it was just like, God, what do you do? And we were broke again, and we lived in this house with no electricity and no water. And I will tell you, the hardest thing for me to hear as a dad was, we're hungry, and there wasn't much that you could do about it.
Yeah.
So a little church had invited us to church, and they would feed the kids and give us food. And there was one night where we had a kerosene heater, and at 4:14 in the morning, it went out. And that was it. That was the last of it. And it was the dead of winter. It was cold. So we moved all the kids out into the car, and I decided that 414 was going to be my number. I was going to put in 414 applications. I was going to help 414 people. I was going to volunteer 414 times. I didn't care.
Right.
414 was going to become my number. I wasn't going to focus on what was wrong. I was going to focus on what I could do, what I could control.
Right.
Not what I couldn't control, but what I could control. It didn't take 414 applications. It didn't take helping 414 people. It didn't take volunteering 414 times for our lives to change. Mm-hmm. It took probably 20 applications.
Right.
Probably took like 4 or 5 people, and 3 volunteer, things, and things started to change around very, very quickly. And so I took a job as a sales manager, and life got very, very good.
Oh, I love that.
And so we were doing very well, and then I got laid off. And again, just right back to, I'll just eat, figure that out.
Right.
But I got a job pretty quick because, I still wanted to do the 414 thing. Like, okay, it worked before, I can do this again.
Right.
And so I did it again, and I got a job pretty quick. It was a big pay cut. So we moved into a much smaller house. It was like 2 bedrooms, 700 square feet. We've got 4 kids, 6 people in this house. We're just trying to navigate life.
Right.
And we're doing okay. We're not doing great, but we're doing okay. And one night our house caught on fire.
Oh.
And it was just kind of like, what do you do? Like, how much more can we take?
Right.
I'm at this point where I just want to break, I just want to break from it all, and my brain starts to think, oh, I know how you can get a break. I know exactly how you can get a break. But again, I'm just like, no, but I want to be that dad and that husband. And I know if I do any of that, that's over.
Right.
Because my wife has made that clear. Like,
right.
You go back to that is over. And so the Red Cross puts us up at a hotel. Okay. And I stay awake while everybody else goes to sleep. And I hate the sound of snoring. I hate it. But it was the most beautiful sound that I'd ever heard that night.
Yeah.
Because everybody was alive.
Right.
And everybody was okay. And we were going to make it through that. It was going to be okay, So we had to move out of that house. We got a different house, and I got another job, and things are going well. And then I had a major back injury, and I like
so up then down, and oh gosh,
up and down,
roller
and down,
coaster,
and it was just this. I don't know. It was this. So defeating, the back injury was so defeating.
Oh, I bet.
Because I wanted to be that I'm a man. I can take care of my family. I can go to work, I can do all these things, and I couldn't. I lost my job, ended up in a wheelchair. Because we didn't have insurance, and I couldn't do anything about it. And I tried, but I didn't know what to do. And so my wife, was working, but it wasn't enough to carry us, And so one day I was sitting on the couch, and this telemarketer called. And he was like, hey, you want to buy some insurance? And I was like, dude, let me just tell you about insurance. And I went off on him. I totally went off on him.
Right.
And he was like, hey, whoa, listen. I'm going to call you when I get off of work, and I'm going to tell you how you can get insurance. You don't have to pay for it, but I'm going to tell you how to do it, and you can get help. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll believe it when I see it.
Right.
I know what my life is. It sucks. It's the worst ever.
Yeah.
That's where I was at that point. So get off the phone. He called me at 7:00 that night, and he was like, here's how you do it. Like, get your laptop out. I'm going to show you. And did everything, and I had insurance cards in 2 weeks. And so then back surgery, all that was possible. Had my back surgery, but couldn't go back to the jobs that I was doing. And so I could sell cars, I was good at that. And so I applied at a car dealership. I had asked a friend from church if she would be a reference for me. So I called her, and I got her voicemail. And I said, hey, will you, I was calling to see if you'd be a reference for me. Give me a call back. It's pretty urgent, so just give me a call back. And she was like, so I just waited, and I didn't get a call back. And I was like, so I guess we're not friends, Right. And the whole week went by, and I was like, geez, man, what did I do?
Yeah.
Well, she called back the next week, and she said, Nathan, I'm so sorry. When I go on vacation, I shut my phone off, and I don't respond to anybody. It's my time to unplug. She said, did you get the job? And I said, no, I didn't hear back from them at all. And she goes, good. And I was like, good? It's like, screw you, man.
Right.
What do you mean good?
Right.
And she's like, well, there's a job that I think it'd be really, really good for. And I'm going to connect you with the executive director. And so she connected me, and it was a job at a nonprofit, and they did substance use prevention education in the schools, with adults, with different organizations. But I applied for it, and I got back this letter, and it said, you have all the parameters, but you don't have a bachelor's degree. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm out, and so I wrote back, and I was like, hey, thanks, appreciate it. I noticed that you have to have a bachelor's degree. That's not me. So, but thank you anyways. And they called me, and they said, yeah, we don't care. Just come in. We want to talk to you. And I was like, okay. And so I went in, and this is the other part where my life has changed. This was 2017. I went in, I had the interview, and I started like a week later.
Okay.
And my very first week, I had someone that was training me, and they had a school assembly scheduled. And they said, hey, at the end of the week, we're doing a school assembly. Don't worry, I've got everything handled. Cool. Wednesday, I came in, and I was told, she just quit. She's done. You got it. You got the school assembly. Cool. Like, what
cool,
do I,
but
what do I,
shit.
what do I do?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I just thought, well, I can kind of tell my story about how I started smoking, how I started using marijuana, how I started drinking alcohol, and kind of explain why those things are bad decisions, but how my mom and dad could have prevented it, but how my emotional regulation could have prevented it too if I would have used coping skills. And so that's what I did. I went in, I did that, and it got a big round of applause. And the principal wrote my boss and was like, it's the best assembly we've ever had. And then I just went to regular work. Like, life went back to normal. The next year, we hired somebody to come in and do that. And we, like, a lot of money, a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I thought, well, wait, like, I can do that, and if I can do that at this school, I can do that
At other schools.
Yeah. And so I went home and I talked to my wife and I said, what do you think about if I were to start, like, reaching out to schools and asking them if I could come speak to their students with the experience that I have? And she said, I was wondering, like, when you would start doing that. And I was like, awesome. So I just started.
She was probably so proud because she has seen you go through everything.
Full circle.
Yeah.
And typically she travels with me everywhere. And you know this, but my dad passed away a couple of weeks ago. So she's with my mom today.
Right.
But typically she's with me everywhere I go because she is proud of me, and she's that support system. Plus she does, like, the back end of the business. She handles all the bookings. She handles all of the IRS stuff. She handles all the paperwork. Like, I don't have to touch any of that because I was, and there was a day where she opened up my website and it had all these open invoices. It had like 8 open invoices, and she was like, how many open invoices do you have? And I was like, I don't know, like maybe 3. And she's like, 8, Nathan. There are 8 open invoices. And I was like, yeah, I don't know, like, I just do it.
Yeah.
For me, like, I don't care if I get paid, know? And she's like, well, I do.
Yeah, I do.
Like,
Yeah.
we got to pay bills,
Right.
So she took all of that over, and she still handles all of that today. But that's what I do now. I don't work for a nonprofit anymore. That's what I do. I speak at schools and conferences.
Love it.
And we just signed the biggest contract we've ever signed with a national organization, and so that'll keep us pretty busy. So
I love it.
So
I love your story with her. Where it started, and now you guys are such a team.
I've had friends tell me, I'm your biggest supporter. And I'm like, no, you're not. You don't even come close.
My wife is.
You don't even come close. It's my wife.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And she was hard on your ass in the beginning.
She had to be.
Good girl.
She had to be.
Right.
I wish she
and consistent. Sounds like she was consistent with it, which is so important.
Very.
Yeah.
I wish she would tell her story, because she's that way because of her story.
Okay.
But she's not I want to be in the public.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm fine doing the paperwork in the back room.
Right.
You go do that. I'll be back here.
Have you been getting, like, what kind of responses are you getting from the kids when you, because I think it's so important how it just started with cigarettes and then progressed. Today, it's way worse. I mean, it goes from one thing, it could be alcohol straight to heroin. I mean, it's just.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So scary.
vaping is probably the biggest issue that middle schools and high schools have. Vaping, nicotine, and marijuana. But the response that we're getting from the kids is really, really good. They're enjoying the presentation. I use all their words, and
Right.
so when I talk about meeting my wife at the airport, I'll say, so I saw this girl at the airport, and I was like, I got that Riz, right? So, right, and so they
probably go crazy.
They're just like, oh no, right? And I have a senior picture that I show, and it I show that picture right after a really heavy moment in my story.
Yeah.
And I'll go, I'll pull up the senior picture, and I'll go, this is my senior picture, and I know what you're probably thinking. And I'll pause for a moment, and I'll go, you're probably thinking, dang, that guy's got a lot of Riz. And you are right. That guy has so much Riz. And so I love to use their language.
Yeah.
Alpha, Sigma, all that stuff. I do that. I just make it fun for them
Right.
because I don't want it to just be someone lecturing them.
Yes.
It's going to be
They
fun.
tune out
Right. It's
when
going to be
you do
fun and interactive. And that's what it is. And I've got some stuff that I use with them, some demonstrations I do with students, and opportunities for them to get in front of their peers and kind of show off a little bit. And,
Right.
But it's the feedback is really good. The principals, the educators, their feedback is really good. The other thing that I've been working on, not just assemblies, is I've been part of a system to where I'm helping schools look at their school policy, their tobacco school policies, and I've helped. I haven't done this myself, but I've helped 2 schools remodel their policies,
Okay.
and so because of that, I teach a 4-hour class on Saturdays at those school districts. One of them is an hour and a half away from me, and then one's 45 minutes away from me. But we've restructured those school policies. We've tracked everything. We've tracked the data, and at the end of last year, the first school that we had, they had reduced their vaping citations by over 68%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Vaping for me is so scary. Like anytime I see anybody, I'm like, shouldn't be doing that, because I feel like they're all just guinea pigs with that.
That's
we
what
have
it is.
no idea
That's what it is.
those are going to do yet.
Over the Truth Initiative just did a study, and over 80% of the vapes that are on the market today are illegal. They haven't gone through the process with the FDA to have the approval to be sold. The FDA is not going to regulate them. They're not going to go into the manufacturer and go, are you putting the right amount of this and this and this?
Right.
They're not going to do it.
Right.
But there is a process that you have to go to the FDA and you have to say, I want to sell this vape, and they have to approve it. Over 80% of the ones that are on the market today are not approved by the FDA to be on the shelves. You're a guinea pig. If you are vaping, you're a guinea pig. And what's going to happen is the same thing that happened with tobacco. We're going to go, oh, holy crap.
Right.
People are dying. What are we going to do? We can't backtrack. Now we're too deep in. So now what do we do? Right. And we have kids that are, they're ending up in intensive care because of how much they vape.
Right.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
It's crazy.
And they're real good at sneaking them too, like putting them in their sleeves and
so good.
Hiding the smoke, because it's not like regular cigarette smoke. But
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. And they make hoodies to where the hoodie string, you put it in your mouth and
What?
Yeah. And then they'll take these kids are like, don't give it away. They take their sleeve and they blow it in their sleeve, and you don't see it. Or they'll inhale it and I used to do this with marijuana, but they'll inhale it and they'll go and they'll just keep it in. It's called zeroing.
Okay, well, that can't be good at all.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not, because they think like it's just water vapor, But those heavy metals, those particles are staying on their lungs.
Right.
I mean, it's a very dangerous drug.
I know.
And they just don't have any idea, you know.
There's been a couple, things that have been out there, like in the news and stuff too, where there has been something very negative that happened, or they've blown up, just different things. And I don't know why, but I guess it's an addiction. People, once they're using it a little bit, it's an addiction.
Yeah.
Fully.
It is. And the crazy thing is there's no way to tell how much nicotine is in a vape. Who was it? I'll have to look it up, but there's a program that the American Lung Association does. It's called In-Depth. And in the In-Depth program, they talk about a study that was done where some of the vape juices were tested, and they were 0 milligram vape nicotine. They tested them, and they were over 20 milligrams of nicotine in those bottles. Oh. And so imagine if you're thinking, I'm going to quit. I'm going to reduce myself down to 0. Mm-hmm. I get to 0. I'm thinking everything's fine. But I'm getting over 20 milligrams of nicotine every time I hit this.
Right.
This 0 milligram nicotine.
Mm-hmm.
You have no clue how addicted you are because you have no idea how much nicotine is actually in the vapes.
Right. And I think because it's so easy too, they constantly are puffing on it. Like it becomes the habit, the kind of like the oral fixation that people used to say with cigarettes. If you just hold the cigarette but don't light it and you're still going through the motions, I think that they start just hitting on that thing constantly because it's habit.
Yeah, it's habit. They've been disciplined to do it, and they've been disciplined to do it because when they're mad, they vape. When they're sad, they vape. When they're hurt, they vape. When they're jealous, they vape.
Anxiety and yes.
Right. And they think like they're fixing all of that, but they're making it worse.
Right.
And they just don't realize it. And so we have this whole epidemic of teenagers right now that we have this mental health crisis in teenagers today that's being caused by adverse childhood experiences. It's being caused by social media. It's being caused by nicotine. And like everyone's like, what do we do? What do we do? Well, let's backpedal a little bit. Let's take a look and see, okay, what's going on in your life? When you're mad, do you go to social media? When you're sad, or does social media make you sad? Are you doom scrolling?
Oh,
and then when you're doom scrolling, how often do you hit the vape?
Right.
And it's like, we can fix this. Like we can solve this issue, but I don't know. I just think.
Do you get into ACEs at all? Like talking about ACE?
Yeah. So like someone like me who has 4 or more adverse childhood experiences is 38 times more likely to die by suicide.
Right.
400% more likely to suffer from depression. And then someone like me who has 6 or more ACEs is likely to lose about 20 years off the end of their lifespan.
I know.
But let's talk about PACEs for a minute. Let's bring the positive into it. The positive childhood experiences. Things like one-on-one interaction, coaching, mentorship, just a teacher who brings in Chicago Cubs stuff. Yep. Right? Michael Jordan stuff and says, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to connect.
Right.
Just having those kinds of things, like those are positive childhood experiences. Community events, that's a positive childhood experience. Structure.
We need those to outweigh the negative.
Those outweigh the adverse childhood experiences. And the more positive ones you can give as a community, what happened to It Takes a Village?
Right.
It left. It left. It's still true. It takes a village, but it takes the whole community. But as a community, the more PACEs that we can provide, the better outcomes we're going to see.
I love that you're out there educating people on that because I don't think people really think of anything that way anymore.
No. And I can tell you, I have so many parents that call me and they'll go, my kid is moody. He's angry all the time, and we don't know what to do. And I'll say, go to their room and look for a vape. And they'll go, no, it's not that. And I'll go to their room and look for a vape. Well, not our son. It's not our son wouldn't do that. And I'm like, just humor me. If you don't find it, then you can see, you can say, I told you so.
Look under the pillows, in between the mattresses, in their drawer. Yeah, everywhere. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Plugged into their computer. Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, I'll get a call back. We found 6 vapes. We found 3 vapes. We found 1 vape, you know? And, and it's like, okay, so now let's talk about their life. Before you get upset, before you get angry, before you get mad, let's talk about their life. What's happened in their life? What are the hard things that have happened in their life? And how did you deal with those hard things for them?
Right.
Or how did you help them deal with those hard things? And it's that coaching process, because I know for a fact that if you catch your kid vaping and then you walk into their room and you go, what is wrong with you? You can't be doing this. You've lost your mind. That's not going to work.
Right.
They're not going to be like, oh, you know what, Mom? You're right. I won't ever vape again.
Right.
Got it. You know, they're going to wait for you to leave, and they're going to find the one that they hid really, really well, and they're going to hit it.
I'll never vape again in front of you.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the positive childhood experiences that change the game. And we so often in the mental health world, we talk about ACEs. Here's the data. And we don't go, but here's the actionable strategies of PACEs that wipe these off the table.
Right.
Or at least help kids deal with them to where they can arrange them on the plate and say, that's the food that I don't like. But man, I really like peas and I really like carrots. And boy, do I love this cinnamon roll.
But we have to dive in a little bit and ask them, like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Not what's wrong with you. Right. Yeah.
And at the same time, you know, like if you have a 7-year-old who has some trauma, you know, get down on their level and play with them.
Right.
You know, if they want to play Barbies, play Barbies. If they want to play G.I. Joe, play G.I. Joe.
Right.
But get on their level and play with them and give them the serve and return. If they go, hey, can I see you for a minute? You go, yeah. Hey, what's up, buddy? You know, not just a minute. Hold on.
Right.
Hang on. You know,
see, I'm really guilty of that. Like even with my grandkids, because I'm always busy. So
I know. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. But it's
but that's going to make me think. You saying that like that, it's going to make me think.
The more you're aware of it,
right.
I mean, the better you can do. And I don't say any of these things to shame anyone. Like I suffer with it too. And like I realized one time, you know, I was telling my kids, I'm like, you guys are on those phones way too much. You know, way too much. You're on those tablets way too much. You play video games way too much. And one day, like I'm sitting in my room and my kids come in and they're like, hey, Dad. And I'm like, hang on. And I'm not doing nothing. I'm just scrolling. I'm like, hang on, hold on. And then they leave. I don't even notice they left, you know?
Yeah.
And then one day they like, they're talking to me and they're like, dude, like you're on the phone way more than we are. And I'm like, oh man.
You're like, mind your own business.
Yeah.
But
go to your room.
It's true. It's true.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I think that's causing that epidemic of loneliness is that parents are on their phones trying to decompress. They're trying to deal with their stress. Kids are on their phones. And then when they're trying to deal with their stress and they want to talk to mom and dad are like, hold on. Watching this video on how to make lemon cakes. Right. Yeah. But
it's really tough adulting.
It is.
You know?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that you said that though, because I think that I will recognize that. Because as soon as you said it, I'm like, shit, I do that a lot.
Yeah. I have to remind myself a lot too.
Yeah.
And I've tried to be more aware how much that I do it, because I don't want my kids to feel like Dad was never available,
like present with us.
Present.
Yeah.
And you know, in the past couple of years, my kids have said to me, I've said to them, you know, you guys ask your mom for help all the time. Why don't you ask me for help? And they go, well, you're always busy. And so now I'm like, well, I'm not.
Yeah.
Like you can ask me for help, you know? So I don't know. Like I had to change that. I had to change that perception of them thinking that I was busy, too busy for them,
Right.
you know? So yeah.
Oh gosh, now I'm thinking I have to make some changes.
Good changes though.
Yeah, no, they are good changes.
I mean,
You brought up
these
so
are
many good
good
points.
changes.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that anything that we can do to better our kids' lives is ever a negative thing.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and there's so many things that I still need to do. You know, and I think about, you know, my dad passing away is still fresh, but I think about how good of a dad that he was, and I had to take a look in the mirror and be like, do I measure up to that? Am I being that good of a dad?
Right.
And bringing that level of fatherhood to my kids, and so I'm looking at things like, okay, how did my dad handle this? How did my dad do that?
Of course.
How did he make me
Yeah.
feel when he did these kinds of things? And so I'm really trying super hard to be more present and more available. And
Right.
never will I let my kids leave the house or leave the car without me saying, I love you, I'm proud of you. Never. And that was implemented, you know, quickly 2 weeks ago.
Right.
I would always say I love you,
Right.
but I want to make sure they know
That you're proud.
that
too.
I'm proud, so that if I ever pass away, when I pass away, if ever, that'd be great. When I pass away, they don't have to wonder, was dad proud of me?
Right.
You know, I don't wonder that.
Right.
I don't have to wonder it. My dad told me all the time,
He let you know.
you know, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when I got my life, you know, back together.
Right. For sure.
He let me know, I'm proud of you. I'm very proud of you. And I was at his house a month ago, and we were talking about a situation, and I said, what would you do? And he goes, well, this is what I would do, you know, and he gave me the rundown, and I left the house, and, you know, I said, love you, Dad. And he said, love you. And I got in the car, and I was almost home, and my phone rang, and I picked it up, and he goes, hey, and I go, yeah, what's up? And he goes, I just wanted to tell you, I'm really proud of you.
Oh.
And I was like, oh man, you know, and I was like, thanks, Dad. I appreciate that. You know, so you're going
to remember that for the rest of your life.
I'll remember that moment for the
Yeah.
rest of my life.
And I think a lot of us, like you said, we get caught up with being busy and all the things, but time's the one thing we never get back.
It's not. And I'll tell you this, and I don't know where we go from here, but my dad had a phrase that he always used, and I hated it as a kid, but I love it now. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. Proper. It's the right way. It's the fabric of everything that you're doing. You know, it's the dedication, it's the commitment, it's the proper way of doing it. Preparation. Are you ready or are you prepared are two different things. Do you get ready in the morning or do you get prepared in the morning? There's a big difference.
Yeah.
There's a big difference. And I hated that as a kid because my dad would always ask, you know, are you prepared for school or are you ready for school? I go, oh, I don't know what the difference is, you know?
Right.
But I think I knew, but
Right.
you know,
But you're like, you're annoying. Why are you asking me that again? Yeah.
But I know now, you know, prevents, you know, preventing things is way better than fixing them.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
if I've got a car in the shop right now that I'm putting brakes on, not because it started rattling or squeaking, but because I knew it was going to need brakes and I didn't want to hurt anything else. I don't want to break anything else.
Right.
You prevent other damages by just preventing the small things, you know. Proper preparation prevents poor outcomes.
Right.
You know, that's what you get if you don't prepare for things. And I don't want poor outcomes.
Right.
I want good outcomes. I want excellent outcomes. And then performance. This is my favorite thing that my dad taught me. you have a theater, and everyone's waiting for the curtain to rise, and the curtain rises, and you have your actors on stage, you have your performers on stage. They know their lines, they know their marks, they know their movements, they know their choreography. That show is going to be awesome. Mm-hmm. But if one of them doesn't know just one of those things, the performance is a mess.
Right.
And what do you want your performance to be in life? Well, if you are properly prepared, you're going to prevent that poor performance. How much work are you willing to put in? How much effort are you willing to give?
Right.
And how much love are you willing to commit to change the world? And that is what my dad taught me. And that is what I live out. I try to live out every single day.
That's amazing. I'm proud of you too, that you were able to do all those P's constantly. I feel like, but gosh, wow. What an amazing thing for your dad to leave you with.
Yeah.
And that you can educate other people and teach others the same. That's awesome.
I just shifted my my speech. I used to do a speech called "Laugh Your Class Off," and it was laugh was an acronym. But now I'm switching it to proper preparation prevents poor performance.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for driving here.
Absolutely.
I'm glad we had you on.
I was glad to be here. This was fun.
I will make sure that we put all your information too in the description.
Cool.
So everyone can reach him in different ways, and we'll put that in the description. And we'll probably be posting this like within a week.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.